Hi everyone, Brian at Texas Auto Quest, ASE Master Technician. Have you ever wondered about why a battery drains down? You turn the key off, you turn everything off, you come back and the battery's dead. Well, we have a vehicle in here that's having that exact same problem. The customer's complaint is it will drain the battery in about 10 minutes. So let's take a look at this vehicle and see what we have. It's a 97 Ford F250. As you can see, it's just a farm truck. And this is the battery they have on it. And first thing is we need to test the battery. This battery currently won't take a charge, so we're going to go ahead and replace it with a good one. We've got the new battery in, but as you look at these cables, there's a lot of corrosion and buildup on the inner surface. That's what you're trying to look at, is where it makes contact when it fits on the lead post. See, between the lead and this inner part, we need a really good connection. Same way with the positive post. You see there's a lot of corrosion on the outside, and while that's not so pretty, the inside is actually what matters. Between the nice lead post and the inside here, you see all that corrosion? So what we're going to use, we're going to use one of these tools, and this would, normally we would clean this post with it, but because this is a brand new battery, we're not going to need to use this. And to clean the inside of this, we're going to use a drill. So let's see how that would work. We just stick the drill with a bristle brush on it, and we would just turn it, and we're going to clean this post. Alright, we've got our post clean. You can see on the inside here, you see we've got a nice clean surface to work from. Got that oxidation off there. Alright, and so what we're going to use to check the current on it is we're going to use an inductive probe, and this is from Snap-on, and it just goes around the wire like this. But you notice these wires, it's not going to fit. The jaw is not going to close because this is made to go around only a certain size wire, and this particular setup has two wires. So we're going to get around this by just using a little jumper wire. And we're going to jump to the battery, and we're going to go across, we're just going to hook it up to here. Now you're thinking to yourself, we're not going to start the car, so this little wire will be plenty for just testing to see what is draining this battery down. So we want to take our meter and we want to hook up to it. Let's see, let's turn it on. We're going to turn it on, and we're going to zero it out. We can kind of see the scale. Now the way this scale works is this is reading 349 or 352 milliamps. So think of it as 1,000 milliamps equals 1 amp. So this one's reading, basically, you're almost close to half an amp. So what are you allowed to have on a vehicle? Well, the manufacturers really want to see below 50 milliamp draw on a vehicle. So we have exceeded that by about 300 milliamps, and this is enough to drain a battery overnight. So let's take a look and see how we can figure out what's draining this power on this vehicle even though the key's in the off position. Alright, now we're inside the vehicle, and the first thing we see on is the CB. Somebody's actually wired the CB direct, and it does not cut off with the key. The current draw is down to 286, 68. It's kind of fluctuating a little bit. Because this is an inductive probe, it gets pretty close, but it's not fine-tuned to accuracy. So it's letting us know that we have a 268 milliamp draw on the system, and we need less than 50 or this battery is going to drain in an accelerated pace. So let's go ahead and turn this CB off and see how much of the problem goes away. Alright, we're down to 94 milliamp draw. We're still not below 50. We're still going to have a problem. So we need to investigate this a little further. And I can still hear the speakers kind of rattling, so I'm not for sure that this CB is truly turned off. Even though we have shut the thing down, you probably can hear the little bit of crackling noise. So I think the CB has got a problem. I think it's still staying on. So let's see if we can disconnect it, and we'll see what our current draw drops to then. Alright, we've unplugged the CB, and we also unplugged the third brake, the electronic brakes for trailer brakes, to see if that would help. and it did not help. We are still at 91 milliamps. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to start pulling fuses out to see if we can figure out what circuit is draining this battery. We also can still hear some crackling in the speakers, so something is not going to sleep with the key off. So we'll start pulling fuses and see what we find. So what we've done, we've taken the fuse panel off, looks like that, and it revealed all these fuses, and we took a little pair of pliers and we just pulled each fuse out, and we watched that meter as we were pulling them out to see when that 94 amp would draw. And we pulled all these out and had no effect. So we're going to put this cover back on and we're going to go up under the hood. Now, how are we working on the car without the dome light? Well, that's a good question. We just kind of rigged it. We put a block of wood right here on the switch, and we're holding the door with a bungee strap. And so that's keeping that dome light from coming on. So we're under the hood. You can see we're still at 90 milliamps, and we're going to suspect that the alternator may be having a problem. Now, the owner has actually taken the alternator off and had it tested, and it's tested fine. But sometimes you get a bad diode in an alternator, and that can cause some problems. So we're going to check that. What we're going to do is just take the wiring off the back side of the alternator here, and we're going to see if that has any effect on our drain. Well, as we were fixing to take the alternator wires loose, we noticed that voltage, or the current, had dropped down to 0.8, which is basically nothing. Less than 50 milliamps draw is on it. So because this is an inductive pickup, it's not super precise. So basically that's zero draw on the system itself. Maybe keeping one or two little things alive inside one of the computers, keeping the radio memory and stuff like that. And so we got to scratching our heads. What's going on with this car? So we walked around, and all of a sudden it popped back like you just seen it there. It just popped up to 96, and now it's dropping to 0, and it kind of just, see how it's bouncing back and forth? We're not actually doing anything. So we begin to notice that if we just bump the brake switch a little bit, okay, go ahead and wiggle that brake switch. You see it bounce up? We're not actually pressing the brake switch, we're just wiggling it. And you notice, see how it bounced up? And it won't do it all the time, but you can see it's bouncing from 0. Okay, wiggle it some more. See, there it goes. And the lights are actually not coming on. So the switch is feeding a little bit of current through there, and it's just that intermittent. It'll stop and start on its own without anybody even being inside the vehicle. So this truck has two problems. One is the CB radio is wired directly to power and needs to really be wired to an ignition switch. And the brake switch is defective, causing the battery to drain down. You would never catch this unless you had some form of a meter to be able to watch this as you was working on the vehicle and spot it when it happened.